Okay, and if other people join us, that's no problem. I'm going to start the live stream. And then when I start the live stream, Bill, you'll see a little red box that pops up the same as the recording did. And then we can start the meeting.
Yep, I saw it. So good. You look like the scariest much.
I think you all get notified that the streaming is that you're being recorded and that streaming starts. So, okay, Bill, do you want to start the meeting?
Yes. Why don't we convene the April 24 meeting of Complete Streets, and welcome to everyone. And Laura has mentioned she wants to start us off with the Kelch property and possible traffic study that's being done. And being my usual nature with the pandemic, is now the time to do a traffic study, or are they going to get faulty counts because there's so few cars on the road if they do it now?
Clark, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, Bill, that's been brought up in the traffic study, how it would be insane to do one in the foreseeable future even and call it accurate. So there's a proposal out from the engineering firm, and one of the things they want to do is look back at a study that was done in 2015, I believe, that was very similar routes. So there's a proposal out there. Laura will probably bring that up when she comes back. But it was really interesting because one of the things they do is they kind of track cell phones. So they'll pick up a cell phone on River Road, let's say when you're passing Blatnick Park, and then they'll track that cell phone to see, where did you go? Did you end up turning right on Balltown Road and going up across the bridge? Or did you eventually turn back and go up towards Town Hall or something? So that's part of what they're going to do as part of the traffic study. So there's a pretty good proposal out there that spells it all out. But to answer your question, that's definitely being recognized that you can't possibly monitor traffic right now and call it accurate.
Okay. Could I ask if that traffic study is available, could you scan it and send it to the Complete Streets Committee so we could all take a look at the 2015 study?
I would think so, Laura.
Yeah, no, we can. It's actually in the planning board packets as well. So you can download it right now.
Okay.
But I'll share my screen with you really quick and then just go over it if you want. I just wanted Clark to speak to that. I have trees being dropped off at my house right now for Arbor Day. Okay. There we go.
Laura, you jumped over the minutes. Did you want to touch on the minutes at all? I mean, are you?
Yeah, we do need to go back to the minutes. But let me just share this now while I have it. Where'd it go?
Okay.
Here it is. So it includes traffic, traffic volume data. Can you guys see it?
Mm-hmm.
Existing conditions, trip generation assessment, a cut-through assessment, and then, so they're gonna, and then some of their things that they would give us is a written text, including graphics for future traffic volumes, site distances, overall future site trip generation. And the planning board has some comments on this that they want to work with. Like, rather than calling it a cut-through assessment, I think they want to look at it as, you know, a connection. Summary of the expected impacts and recommended improvements. So this is still a working document, but yeah, it is available on the planning board website, on the planning board packet. Oh, it's not on the, it will be when Clark and I post the planning board packet in like an hour, and I can email it to you.
And Laura, was, just so I'm clear, was the 2015 traffic study that they refer to in that proposal, is that available somewhere? I think that was Bill's question. Is that 2015 traffic study available?
To the Complete Streets Committee?
I don't want to put words in your mouth, Bill, but that's what I understood your question to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, could we read the 2015 study? Janet?
We could ask the developer for it. I don't have a copy of it.
Right,
But
I think,
we can
I
get
was
it,
gonna
yeah.
say, it's been mentioned in the proposal. I haven't seen it, but I would think once we got our hands on it, we could make it available.
So that letter said that they're going to talk to Schenectady County, which is good because I don't remember when, excuse me, but I seem to remember.
Well, I think they have done recent ones, which we talked about because of the River Rosendale Road traffic circle.
Okay, maybe that's what it was. Because I said there was something done in the last couple of years, I remember. So there might be some counts out there from that.
Yeah.
So that there's not a whole lot's changed out there in the last few years. So that would be something to be able to fall back on. So, I know Creighton Manning will do what they need to do. They do this all the time. So I'm not
They
too
do a good
concerned.
job. I was pleased to see that they picked Creighton Manning. I think that the county may have some concerns with the curb cuts. So, I mean, it's a county road. You're definitely gonna have to work with the county on it, regardless. And we definitely want to see the data that they picked up for the River Rosendale connection. And I mean, we definitely want to look at traffic generation. That's really the only way to have, to have a reasonable data-driven, like, is this a good connection? What is the impact to neighbors? Like, what will it help with town? And that's that trip generation and then traffic and the trips. So he's hopefully looking to have that completed by I don't know if Clark said this, by May, the end of May. So we're still not rushing to decide what to do with this proposal, but I do want to keep you guys involved and be looking at all of the traffic and the bike pedestrian connections that are going on. I think David DiRapino said it at the planning board meeting, but Complete Streets isn't to the exclusion of cars. So it's bikes, pedestrian, transit, and cars, like treated equally. So you want to do what's right for all modes of transportation.
Laura,
I do
do
have
we get a sense of the timing of the project? I don't know if the timing has changed with current situation.
Yeah, it did have to change because of we essentially missed a month of meetings, and we do want to wait for the traffic study. And we had planned on having a sit down kind of community conversation with neighborhood, especially the people who live on Windsor. And we had actually scheduled that, I believe, for March 31st. Do you remember, Clark? Was it March?
Yeah, something like that.
But of course, before we even sent the invitations out, that became very untenable. So we are still trying to figure out a way that we can meaningfully speak with the people who live on the road and the neighbors and figure out what's best. But the traffic study is going to make a big difference. So I think what we're trying to do is have a traffic study, see if social distancing is going to continue, for a couple months, in which case we would need to do some kind of a virtual, community meeting, or if, there's a possibility that we could have maybe smaller groups of people discussing, at different times or something like that.
But Mr. Basalian, was he looking to make this a 2020 groundbreaking, or was he looking to do a 2021? Do you have a sense of when he wanted to build?
He definitely wants to go fast. He feels that the property is very desirable, and he already has people who want to purchase some of the product that he's proposing. So,
okay.
He feels like the faster we can do things, the better, which is not uncommon for developers. But I mean, you really can't make a decision without the data. And so it's hard to schedule the town board meeting without knowing when the planning board can do their recommendation. I think that the minimum you wouldn't see anything, at the town board June.
At the planning board meeting, that the residents on Windsor Drive seem pretty unhappy with the proposed road.
Yeah,
The road going through the development, that seems like it would make the development kind of busy too, and not as desirable, as opposed to just a small, semicircle road, just like kind of, it contains a community, yet they can still walk out towards the town and Windsor Drive.
Yeah, we definitely heard those concerns, and they're very valid. One of the reasons for the connection, though, would be like right now, we actually have a very similar configuration on River Road itself. I think it's called Parkville or something, near Mario's, and it's just a little like semicircle that goes, starts and then ends on River Road and has no connection. And it's actually very isolating for a neighborhood. And like if those people, you know, if they want, they can cross the street to Blatnick Park, but if they wanted to go to ShopRite and pick up, you know, milk or whatever was really heavy and they couldn't carry it, they didn't want to. I mean, they had to drive all the way up to Research Circle, down Van Antwerp, over, like, as far, you know, it's a benefit to them to have that direct connection to the Town Center Overlay District. It's a benefit from the Town Center Overlay District standpoint to have a direct connection to Blatnick Park. And it definitely would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by cars driving kind of around in ways that they don't necessarily need to drive. I mean, there's no question that if you make that connection, it's going to save on how long it takes to get to places.
And I think when you get the chance to look at the proposal from Creighton Manning, there's a section where they're going to do some studies of going from even from Windsor Drive to go to certain other destinations within the town. And I think that's going to show that there is some benefit to the people on Windsor, that they'll be able to get throughout the town a little more conveniently too. So
Yeah.
I think that there's a concern about cut through there, but as someone who commutes from Morgan Avenue to Knowles, I mean, with Van Antwerp there, I think rather than go down Windsor and through this connection and then have to make a turn on the oncoming traffic to go to Knowles, you're going to go down Van Antwerp to the Circle and down River, or once we get the Circle down at River and Rosendale, I think that that'll be the easier commute. So I don't really see a lot of people, because of Van Antwerp there, really cutting down Windsor. I think it's going to be effective for providing local flow through the communities.
yeah. But I think that's a good point, because the feedback from Windsor Drive, I think it's fair to say, was predominantly against it. But I think by doing the traffic study and even looking at an aerial view of that part of the town, you start to see that there is some advantage to that. So I think that's going to be part of the study and the presentation, so to speak, that when you look at an aerial view of Niskayuna, having another link right there down to River Road looks very logical, and you can see why there was a stub street there. It makes sense when you look at a map of the town. So I think some of that will come out in the study.
And we talked about too, I mean, it's definitely not decided, but you know, the comprehensive plan has spoken to it, and you know, there's been changes to it over time, and I know that some of the language in the comprehensive plan has been debated, but there's people who were on the comprehensive plan committee that are clarifying that the connection was intended to be in the comprehensive plan. So, you know, not that it's not a living document and things, you know, can change. We're still considering all of those things, but I mean, you definitely want to look at what the history of, you know, our town was, how the roads were laid out, what the benefits are to all neighborhoods, and you know, and get that data and go and then take a look at it from there. Go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
Well, I would like to just offer a little bit of a counterpoint to making that connection. We do have River that's an arterial, a county road that carries folks along there. When they get to Balltown Road, if they're headed into the city, they can go down Providence, Rosa Road. Those are county arterials that carry a lot of traffic already. So folks that are looking to get into the city have got an existing efficient pathway to do that. Also, if they want to come to downtown Niskayuna, as Dart mentioned, they can come up to Van Antwerp, the traffic circle in front of GE, and drop down and get down that way. And I don't think it makes sense to take more of that arterial traffic and put it through neighborhoods, you know, with the traffic loop at River and Rosendale. And when I look at Knott Street East, it kind of runs through downtown, and we have a lot of pedestrian things that are on Knott Street where I think we wouldn't want more auto traffic. That we have a crosswalk at Town Hall and the library. We have a crosswalk at the school entrance on Knott Street East, and if we get a pathway going over to Van Antwerp by Van Antwerp Apartments, there'll be maybe some more school kids walking across there. We do have the crosswalks at Balltown and Knott Street. And then when you get into the co-op, that's contemplated 2 crosswalks, one that's right at the co-op entrance now, and then maybe another one just a further bit down in front of the liquor store. And, we're also asking the county to do a crosswalk at Regent Street. And so if we're encouraging pedestrian access and pedestrians being able to get across a busy road, I mean, I just don't think that you'd want to pull traffic off of another busy county road and put it through residential areas and through downtown Niskayuna. And so, it's possible I'm wearing my NIMBY hat, but, I've lived one house in from Knott Street, and it's gotten a lot more traffic. And so I feel like auto traffic has got a pathway now on River to Providence and Rosa, and that I wouldn't want to bring more cars through here, particularly where, we've got the library, the school, kind of a downtown, and we're trying to promote pedestrian and bike access. We've got a lot of crosswalks, and we're looking at pedestrian safety. So I'd be opposed to that connection. I think we should just stay with the hike and bike path connection. So thank you for letting me.
Bill, when I looked at that, I understand what you're saying, but if you look at what's between like this potential connection and Van Antwerp, the only 2 really areas there are GE and Knowles and a couple of houses. So I've looked at this quite a bit, and I think what's being proposed here is a fairly challenging road to get through because there's going to be a turn at the end of Windsor, and we're going to have to go around that loop, and you're going to have to make a turn onto a busy street. I don't think people are going to use it as a cut through. I think particularly if you're coming from Schenectady, you're either going to turn on Balltown or you're going to turn on VA in order to get to the Rexford Bridge. Even if you were going to like Knowles, I mean, I don't think you'd go that way. Maybe you get some traffic to the park. But I think you got to look at the people who are going to be on this circle. And if they're going to downtown Niskayuna, it provides a quicker connection for them to get to the town center as opposed to driving all the way up River Road, all the way down Van Antwerp and around. I mean, for someone like I've walked home from work, it's really a challenge to get through there. And I think it would provide a lot of good connection to the community. I know you and I disagree on this, and that's fine.
Well, certainly having the hike and bike path will make it easier. And I guess part of me is wearing my hat on the other side, which is people don't think it's going to be something, but if it turns out to add a lot of traffic, then it's how do you get the toothpaste back in the tube? It's hard to go back the other way, and so I'd rather think about it ahead of time. And if people can still move around even without that connection, then fine.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I'm sort of also basing it on when they put Hummingbird through, the community. There was a lot of concern on Morgan and Vrooman that would be a cut through, and it turned out that it hasn't really been a cut through at all. It's been a convenience for me to go to the grocery store that way, and I'm sure it's a convenience for people in Hummingbird to go through Morgan Avenue. So maybe there was a slight increase in traffic, but I think the big concern of the community was people were going to cut from Balltown through the community to avoid the lights at 7 and Balltown. And from my perspective and a lot of the community's perspective, that just hasn't happened. I mean, that really hasn't been an impact.
I would add looking over
River Road there, that's a very busy road.
So back in the day, I used to actually cut through that neighborhood to get to work. I used to work over in Latham, and there is a reasonable amount of traffic right now that comes down Windsor and down Briar, and its way out to River Road, kind of further over. So there is already cut through traffic, and those people know about it. I mean, I kind of agree with Doug. I think I stated this before. I think there would be some increase in traffic by putting this in, but I don't think it would be a huge increase. because the people who know that connection and want to use it are already doing Briar, kind of as it is. And the other thought I wanted to put out there was, you know, it would slow down the project, but it might be worth considering. But we could talk about traffic calming on Windsor Drive itself, if there is and talk. I mean, it's a pretty wide road. We'd have to talk to the highway department, but you know, there's the potential you could put a small median in there, read the road so that it's more chicane. There are other things we can do that are lower cost elements to help calm that road, which quite honestly probably should be done anyway because it's like a highway is. I'm sure if we put tube counts out now, we'd find that these are over to the 30 or 35 mile an hour speed limit. So there are other things we can do, I think, to help traffic calm that road. You know, but those are off-site improvements, so that has a cost with it and you know, time consideration, other things that would have to be looked at. And then Laura, I wanted to, I don't know, were you going to talk about the realignment of the trail connection now?
Yes, I did one. That was one of the reasons I put that specifically on there. I don't like it as much. I don't know how you feel about it. Yeah. I did want to say, just from listening to you guys, I think, oh my gosh, a median on Windsor is a great idea with the chicane. I really think that would slow a lot of traffic down. But also Windsor is a collector and it has a large right of way, and it used to have lines on the road because the intent was to have it be a road that conducts traffic, but it definitely does not need to be going faster than 30 miles an hour. And you can do that like very tastefully. I mean, it is a really wide right of way. If you put a median and planted it with trees, that's going to add value to those homes. So I really think that's a great idea. New connection. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, David over, I live on Ruffner, and my family, we walk down there quite often. And just say that, the pedestrian accommodations there with the path is just wonderful. But it is hard to not drive faster than 35 miles per hour there based on, the width of the road and the fact that there's just no stop signs. And there are certainly some intersections where I think it could benefit from, putting a median or something at a more expensive traffic calming. I can see that there could be some concern about that. But there are some, intersections that would certainly make sense, in my opinion, just to have a stop sign and slow the route along a little bit along the way. But, I think about all the families that are using the park down there and having both the driving and pedestrian, real complete street connection. I just think, to me, that this is one of the best opportunities we have to really connect, the park asset to not just the people in Windsor, but all the neighborhoods that are connected there, and connecting them back to our downtown. Because, let's face it, if we want our businesses to survive in the center of, Niskayuna, we need to make sure that it's convenient for all users to access them if they're headed to different parts of the neighborhood. And if you're at a baseball game or if you're playing at the park, you're less likely to add that time to go around the circle, down Van Antwerp, and that when you could, I could stop and get milk or go to Kai Tai Bistro, and because it's connected here. So I think we should really think about the value that it adds to further improve our business corridor.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Thank you, David. I did want, so I don't know that we're ready to make a full recommendation on whether or not Windsor Drive should be connected, if we want to wait for the data, or if we want to be, or if we want to be like, listen, we've seen the maps, like, the connection makes sense for the neighborhood. We don't have to make a recommendation on the Windsor Drive connection until we get the study. But I do think that the timeliness of at least looking at this new revision, and Jim, if you want to jump in, maybe offering that bike crossing needs to be moved back to where it was with the realignment. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Sorry, I dropped off the call and I meant to hit mute and I logged off.
I've done that.
But the one thing I noticed is now, the trail's been moved, and in terms of the connection across River Road, I don't know that it's a big into, a more central part of the park. But it does do by being realigned is it's not going to change anything with the existing crossing, it looks like. So we still have that offset angled crossing on River Road, which we had talked about. We wanted to make that as a perpendicular crossing. And the bigger issue now is there's no sidewalk for the houses on the other side of the loop, and now there's no direct connection to the existing trail. So in theory, if someone of these houses wants to get to the existing trail, to say walk on, what is that, the west side of River Road, they have to cross River Road, go down, cross River Road again to come back into the neighborhood and kind of do a loop. Whereas before we had, the crossing had been more down toward the Public Works building, and someone could have stayed on that same side of River Road to kind of do a loop through the neighborhood. In terms of a direct crossing to the park, I don't have a problem with it, but in terms of people in that neighborhood being able to stay in the neighborhood to kind of get around, I think it makes mobility for pedestrians a lot tougher. For them to be able to make like I said, kind of a loop through their neighborhood.
And there is continue the trail on that side of the road, so it does link up to this new development, so that you really, if you want to cross the street to go to the park, great, but you shouldn't be forced to cross the street to then cross the street again if you wanted to get on Windsor.
Yeah, we could definitely make that recommendation. We could also make the recommendation, it's maybe an extra, 100 feet is for him to put the bike path on the northern side of the road, or it's actually not the northern, on the top part of the page. and then
just improve the existing.
Yeah, you could bring it back to the way that it was. You have the T connection, because that's very traffic calming, and have it moved over so that you're not impacting the wetlands. I think there's no question that not impacting the wetlands is a good thing, but then still bring the path to the left of the drawing and down, and then do the realignment like we saw before.
Could I offer a thought on that, Laura? Suppose he runs the hike and bike path all the way across the loop on the housing subdivision, so it's on both sides. And then the new plan shows the crosswalk, I guess, on the west side there. But even if you extended the bike path down to the east side loop, in other words, you'd have access from both ends. That someone coming down the bike path would just continue along, would make a left turn. If they wanted to get on Windsor Drive, then they'd go up the loop and take a left on Windsor and go down. But you'd also have the crosswalk, so coming the other way, you could cross River Road, so you'd be able to have access from both ends. You wouldn't have to make the loop, whichever way you were going. So
yeah, I think that's what you were saying, right? But then you'd still want to do something with the other crossing, which we can do separately, because we had originally put that in a grant, because right now it's kind of what do you call that? Like, it's not perpendicular.
But for clarification, Bill, were you talking about taking the existing bike path that's on River Road and bringing it up to the east stub of that loop, and then running a path around the whole circle?
Yes, in other words, we probably would still want to fix the crosswalk there. And there would be another crosswalk maybe on the west side there. But you just run the path all the way down to the east part of the loop. And then, as you mentioned, Dart, the hike and bike path would go all the way around the loop. So you could get access from either side of this loop. And it's not that much more work, I don't think.
No, and you definitely want to put the infrastructure in first.
So Laura, I'm trying to remember, in the last plan, did we have a sidewalk where there wasn't the bike path?
Yeah, I pulled it up on my computer if you guys want to look at it. Here, this is the last one. Sorry, it's a little.
Yeah, I'm not able to access the maps right now, so I can't.
Oh, sorry, I can pull them up and we can just talk about them. Okay, so the map is here. I just pulled it up. Here's the last plan. Can you guys see that? It wrapped around let's just call it the west side, even though it's not the west side. And then the bike path was realigned. And then the new plan is here. Very for the homelessness. So the bike path coming around on the east side and then coming down, and we're talking like there's nothing over here. So you could, I wonder if I can draw on this. Can I draw on this? No. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. You
Oh,
did.
there, yeah. So you could put something along here, right? And then come down, and then the question is what you do at the bottom, right? Oops. Oh no. Oh my gosh. Let's not look at that. But that's what we're talking about. I'm just gonna stop sharing. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I guess my main concern is just that now, you know, in order for someone in that neighborhood there, or even for someone up on Windsor to just kind of do a walking loop within the neighborhood, they have to cross River Road twice. And it, you know, it's not, you know, from that perspective, it's not desirable. The connection into the park, I think, is fine wherever it's located, but it's just a question of accessibility for those people, because I do think, you know, if it would continue along the same side of River Road, the new development, you could have a lot of people out kind of walking and biking. Maybe they would go over the river, you know, over to the park once in a while. But you know, we'd also talked about, we always, you know, from a couple of years ago, one of our preferences had been to realign that existing River Road. This wouldn't do that. Whereas I believe the other one, when we had it going down the other side, we were looking at realigning that crosswalk, which would take off one of our higher priority projects for complete streets. So just something to think about. I don't know what the answer is. Think about.
Laura, I think the main advantage of putting the bike path or the multi-use path where it is in the latest version is just so that it never has to cross. It never crosses Windsor, right?
It's true. Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, to me, once you're in that Kelts Farm development, I can't believe crossing the road is a big deal.
No, but if you can keep a nice bike path, you know, I think you actually like there's just a variety of levels of confidence in biking, and there's this scale, and I can't remember exactly what it's called. Like I think Jim's the one that even showed this to me, but like you'll increase people's choice to take a bike depending on their comfort level if you have a bike, like a solid bike path all along the whole way. As soon as you put them on the street, there's some people who will no longer be comfortable like sending their children there. And it's, I mean, it's, you know, it's just a question of, I mean, of course, always balancing cost and balancing like whatever else needs to go there. But if the developer is putting in a path, I don't think it's a whole lot of extra cost to put the multi-use path in on the other side too, which would allow those houses to have that same connection.
Yeah, I'd probably throw it back to him and say, you know, hopefully we can make it the recommendation or the mandate of the planning commission that they just have to connect the existing path on that side of River Road, either through, you know, another connection through the what we're calling it, the left side road, or just all the way through. So if you want to keep it where it is, that's fine. But you just then continue at the corner of the property, you continue the River Road connection all the way through to the far side road, you know?
Yeah.
So it just makes that loop. However they want to do it, however's the cheapest, doesn't really matter to me. I just don't want to lead people who want to, you know, make that loop. Maybe they're coming from some neighborhood on that side of river and they want to go up to, you know, ShopRite or go to a restaurant, you know?
Yeah. Or visit their friends. Yeah. So if you connect Riverdale to the new connection, I mean, almost regardless of the Windsor Road car connection, I think you definitely want to make all those connections to the bike path so that people don't have to cross River Road if they don't want to.
Yeah, I think if it were developed as shown on here, I'm pretty confident we'd end up seeing a goat path from the existing bike trail where it crosses River Road connections. I think we'd see a goat path, which essentially is where people are just trampling down the grass, although it is pretty narrow in there, but they'd be walking along the side of the road up to the new road, local road A. I'm quite confident people will be doing that. So I'd prefer to see have a facility to do that so that they're not walking on the side of the road or you know, trampling through the grass. That'll just be something that the town will have to address later on, I think. I do think people, again, will be making that loop or using it to get to the park or whatever. But, that's all part of the negotiations the planning board will have to discuss. But those are kind of my thoughts on it. The only other one, and I don't think it would be an engineering issue, but the path where it is now puts it closer to the curve in the road. I'm sure the sight lines are fine because they're proposing to put the road in there, so there probably aren't any sight. But from a planning perspective, I prefer that the trail be further down River Road, kind of where the crosswalk be further down River Road, because that's a straight part of the road. So if you're looking and when perpendicular either direction, you have a long straightaway both to your right and your left to be able to see the cars coming. Whereas here, it's on the curve, so people have to kind of look a little further down given the speeds to make sure that they can safely cross. Again, I'm sure that it would be hearing muster because it's put in there. But this is
the sight line is not great. Actually, they were talking about restricting the left turn out of there. It's 415 feet.
Okay, then maybe that's something, the planning board can discuss in this committee, just to say, are the sight lines adequate for, putting the crossing in there?
Is there brush along that side, that curve?
There, I don't think so, because the curve is actually closer to where the house used to be.
That whole site's been kind of cleared over there, but now the house is gone, right?
Yeah, and then it's wetlands, but it was wetlands between where the house was and kind of going north on River Road.
Laura, do you know roughly where the house used to be? Is it on like lots 3 and 4 there?
I was actually thinking it was written on this drawing, but it doesn't seem to be, does it? Yeah, let me see if I can pull up a different drawing. Hold on.
Well, I guess are the utility lines right between that gap there on the back of house 3?
So, I mean, it's definitely after the wetlands. You can see the wetlands on there. You guys would probably recognize them. They're, I think, sort of filled with the tall reed grass, phragmites, but not too far after the wetlands. I think you'd see it on the contours, actually.
I guess where does the sewer line easement go on the road? Where was that on the original property?
Well, that's a different sewer line.
Okay.
I mean, like almost like in between lots 3 and 4 and the road. I'm pretty sure that's where the house is somewhere. But let me just see if we've got another drawing.
I think you're right. It was generally in that area. Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think regardless, we want, road connection. I want to make sure that connection gets through. Still to be discussed, but that is definitely a priority. Make that connection.
So we could say our just general thoughts. The planning board at this point are, are the sight lines adequate to move the crosswalk to the curve? Provide the multi-use path connection to Riverdale, kind of regardless of where the entrance comes out on the proposed semicircle.
Yeah.
And then, is there anything else that we would want to say? Or,
She won't stop scratching the door.
Okay.
I'm here right now. Just put her here. Can you? I can't because of the dog.
sorry.
We want to discuss.
Go ahead,
Do
Jim.
we want to discuss traffic calming off site, or is that something for another day?
Traffic coming off site. Coming on Windsor, if possible. I know that I didn't include it in your packet, and I apologize about that, but I will email you the proposed traffic. And then if there's things in there that you think are missing, go ahead and email me, and I'll just bring those points up to the planning board as well. We just want to try and get everything at least looked at by Creighton Manning and then by a town designated engineer as well. And anything else on that?
Thanks for all your work on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's still preliminary, but we only get one shot. I mean, it's so important, right? Because this parcel is so prominent. It's across from such an important park in the town of Niskayuna, and it's very close to being adjacent to our town center overlay district. So you only get one shot when I do it right.
And Laura, I can't remember if we touched on it yet or not, but one of the things that we're well aware of is making sure there's still enough continued public input on this under the social distancing mandates. So, you know, we don't want anybody to feel like this was fast tracked through, or, you know, things were done without proper recognition of people's concerns and even follow-up discussions to the public hearing. So everyone's aware of that.
Yeah. Hi, Paulina.
Hi, sorry I'm so late.
No worries. Okay. So, and then I'll just put a note to myself to email you guys the study. Is there anything else that we want to comment on that at this point, or should we go back to the minutes now?
Well, just getting back to the comment about the through traffic and stuff, would it make sense to make that connection between the connection road and Windsor sharper? You know, it looks sort of like it's a curve, curved in there. If we made it more of a right angle, would that go more towards the concerns that Bill had? Just basically make it less attractive to cut through.
I think it should be a full T intersection. That's just my opinion.
Okay, yeah, I know originally in the CAC we talked about a T cross section in there, but I see it's not a T cross section anymore. I didn't know if there was something else that drove that.
I think the developer just or the engineer just made it more smooth looking for the sake of putting it down on a piece of paper. But other people jump in. The county's recommendation was that be a T intersection.
I think if you make it a T and tie it into the end of the stub that's there right now, that would make sense. I was actually looking at this. I wasn't going to mention it, but if they designed the road the way it was and left that stub there, you're going to have people parking there. You're going to have someone put up a basketball hoop, and then you're going to start getting all sorts of other unintended minor ones, admittedly, but unintended consequences. And then it's going to be a little parking lot off the edge of what was kind of a pass-through road. So I would say a T intersection makes sense both from, you know, just utilizing what's there, preventing that from becoming a play area next to what's going to be, you know, an existing road. And that plays into the whole idea of traffic calming, I think, as well, potentially. Well, certainly. I think that's a good thought to pass along.
Make connection a T intersection.
I just have one more quick question, Laura.
Sure.
We're only talking just one crosswalk across River Road, right? In other words, we would not keep the existing one. That would be abandoned, and we're just going to have one crosswalk that would be from the Celts property over to the bike path.
So good question. In the last version that we saw, the one that had the connection going through the wetlands, that one was one connection, and it was going to take the one from Riverdale and merge the one with this one and bring that one connection over where the road intersected. So there was only one connection in that river. This new proposal has two. It's proposing to leave that connection by Riverdale the way that it is and add a new one on a curve.
Now, if you're a motorist on River Road, then you've got kind of two spots where you've got a crosswalk there. People may push the light. I mean, will that be a nuisance to those? And would they say, gee, why didn't the planners just put one crosswalk here with a light on it? And, you know, we try to think about just doing one and put it in the most suitable or sensible spot. So, I mean, that's just throw that out there.
Yeah, it's possible the county wouldn't even let you put two crosswalks across River Road that close to each other.
So if we could only have one, what's the best spot, I guess?
I mean, you could still keep the existing and just reroute the bike path. I think you said you prefer to be teed rather than.
Is that a little bit of a nuisance for people coming on the bike path through Windsor to get to Botanic Park or to the Little League fields or whatever, to have to backtrack and then go back the other way? Or is it okay?
So, I mean, right. Like, I think having crosswalks close to each other, but the other thing is sometimes, and Jim said herd trails before, you got to look at where people are going to walk. I think that the chances of you getting a blinky light at both of them are slim to none.
Yeah.
You're probably
Would we want to ask the county, what their opinion is on this, or
definitely.
and, so if they've got firm opinions and we can only do one, then I think we'd want to say to ourselves, well, where's the best spot for one that connects Pelt's property and the people on the bike path? And as Jim Levy mentioned, you don't want people having to backtrack too much. So if you can only do one, what would be the best spot?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the answer, but maybe if we're limited to one, you want to give some thought to that.
It makes sense to me.
And just one, would that, encourage going back to the other side, and like the original thought we had, the connection being, I guess, on the east side there, or
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going.
abandon the other one and put it on the east side, which is what Jim said.
Yeah, that's where I was going with the earlier conversation. I think back to where it was makes sense, because then you just have the one crossing. We can realign one of our top priorities, with these, realign the existing one and get away from the bend in River Road.
And if we have the one, I think you can make the case with the county, we want a blinking light because we're going to have a lot of traffic getting over the bike path. You've got Blatnick Park, you got the Little League fields, you got the golf driving range. It's quite suitable to have a blinking light there, a safe pedestrian crossway of a busy road, River Road. So.
Yeah, traffic hardly ever slows down there to let people cross, so that would be great.
Yeah, the county has been amenable to a blinky light in that vicinity. So, but we're also talking about putting one at St. Joseph's. So you really couldn't have three, like in the span of you got to be sort of prudent on where you put them, because you don't want people to start ignoring them.
I think we can make the case for both myself.
Oh yeah, no, I think you can definitely get a St. Joseph and a Blatnick Park, but I think you wouldn't be able to get two at Blatnick Park.
Yeah.
St. Joseph's is far enough away, and it's in that little dip, and so many people cross there, which is I think just a testament of how many people in the neighborhoods really like to use the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail. And I think that you would see very similar crossing if there was any opportunity here. I think Riverdale is a very busy crossing.
Okay, maybe we should move on.
Okay.
We have other business, so thank you for everyone.
Okay, so Bill, can you take us back to the minutes?
I wasn't at that meeting, so I'm happy for another member to move. We accept the minutes from the last meeting. Maybe Jim.
I'll accept.
I'll make that motion. This is Jim.
I'll second. Moved and second to adopt the meeting minutes from the February meeting. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Those are adopted. So let's move on.
Okay, awesome. Oops, I just lost it.
So do we want to talk about the Crescent Road, or do you want to talk about the school district next?
We do have let's go in order of the agenda.
Okay.
I think Crescent Road is still a preliminary discussion as well. But I did put a couple drawings that we'd received for the planning board on there. And, I just wanted to see if we had any thoughts on just, that is adding parking for the business on Crescent Ave, but could potentially help with some overflow at the Knott Street businesses. And we haven't really talked about it, and I can't actually remember if we talked about it at Complete Streets or not, but the applicant has brought up a couple of times that you could fit on-street angled parking on Crescent, like angling the parking towards, the Knott Street Co-op area, and that could potentially alleviate a lot of the parking issues in the triangle.
Is some of that predicated on the town straightening Crescent Road out so it makes more of a T in the Clifton Park Road? And with this parking proposal, would it make sense to wait until that happens, or is that something that should be part of this? The town considers making a sharper T from Crescent onto Clifton Park Road, and then you look at what might be available parking where this little triangle is.
I think that you probably want to define the intersection between Crescent and Clifton, regardless of what happens on street parking on Crescent. But I do think that it's an interesting thing to look at. And maybe we talked about this already. You would lose the lawns. The lawns right now of those buildings are in the right of way, and you would lose a fair amount of green space if you put angled parking there. But the business owners on Crescent would probably support it, because right now they suffer a lot for their people who live in those apartment buildings don't have a place to park, and there's no overnight parking, and so they're really having problems with people who live in the apartment buildings on Crescent Ave having a place to park.
So
I
they're
think
talking about
the cars off Crescent makes sense myself, but
putting parking in essentially in front of the apartments that are there on Crescent. So it'd be between the alley and Balltown.
No, so like between like Crescent Ave and the apartment buildings, you could put angled parking, like in the front yards of the apartment buildings. But it's actually a big right of way. So Crescent Ave is an enormous right of way. Those buildings are almost on the right of way, the same way that the co-op buildings are. You would definitely have enough space to put angled parking on that one side, but you do have to be careful because there's residential houses on the other side, and you wouldn't want to make a sea of parking or cause problems that would create loss of property value and stuff to the residential homes. So you'd have to do it in some way that it would still look green and inviting, but it's not a big deal if you had a bunch of people. It's sort of sorry, my train of thought today. Complimentary parking. If you're parking on Crescent Ave in the daytime to shop in the Knott Street businesses, and then those businesses close down, and the people who live in the apartments then have parking spots at night. So,
How many spots do the apartments need?
So if you look, the apartments have these little garages in the back, and this came up when we've been discussing 222 Crescent Ave, and like for 222 Crescent Ave, for example, it is a 6-unit apartment building, and the garage I think actually has 6 spaces, but the garage is really old and small, and so when you say like 6 parking spaces, like okay, and nowadays, anything that and not that you want to, mess up the world for parking. I think that's a pretty obvious thing not to do anymore. But most families have 2 cars. So it really becomes problematic when you have a tiny car that can't even fit you. You can't park overnight on the street. And I mean, if you have a couple, 2-person, and they have different jobs, where do you put the other car? It becomes very problematic.
Yeah, no, the reason why I ask is, would it be possible to put the parking in, but like intersperse it with green space, sort of like put 4 parking spaces together and then green space and then another 4, rather than have a whole line of diagonal parking there that would look more, city-like. You could sort of dress it up with green space, maybe have some plantings between the cars and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like you'd have to do that, and you'd want trees, some way to soften it, right? Because you don't want to see of asphalt anywhere in that town center overlay district triangle, but there is space to put a lot of cars there, and it could help with the entire triangle. I don't know.
Well, what about, parallel parking wouldn't provide enough for the applicant, I take it? If we were to widen the road just a little bit and put in parallel parking, because right now you can't park there overnight, because they have the no parking requirements essentially during school rush hours, which another time. But if they were allowed to do parallel parking there, you could probably get 5 or 6, maybe. You wouldn't have to put as much pavement in there, but I don't know if it's enough for the applicant or not. But you're right, the garages in the back there are tiny. I walk back through there occasionally, I get to the co-op, and squeezing a car in there would be real. I understand where they're coming from there. But I don't know.
Sorry, Bill. Sorry, Bill. I was just muting you because somebody's phone was ringing. You have to unmute yourself, Bill. Sorry, Bill.
I guess my only concern with any parking that we do there now is that will impact what may or may not be able to be done with the Crescent Road, Alley, Clifton Park Road intersection if we wanted to do something in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely wouldn't want to do them all as you definitely wouldn't want to do. Yes, I agree. It would be nice to figure them out together, but I think you could probably realign the Clifton Park Crescent Ave and then add, parallel parking or angled parking on Crescent later, potentially. Bill, if you hover your mouse over your screen, you should actually see a pin and a microphone pop up, and just click on that microphone.
Hopefully I'm back, am I? Or
You're
not?
back. Sorry about that. Thank you.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking, if we put angled parking in, from essentially somewhere around the alley up toward the apartments there, the only way I think we'd be able to straighten out Crescent and Clifton Park would be to pull it back into that residential property, and it makes the triangle on the other side of Crescent Road, which is doable. I mean, there's a lot of land there, but then, then we're talking about having to talk to that property owner about, moving onto their property to make that into a T. So, whatever people think makes sense for parking, and I do agree the apartments could use it. I just would hate to put ourselves in a jam and not be able to then do the other improvement for a T intersection.
Yeah,
I think that ought to be comprehensive myself. You do the T
I don't know.
intersection, you look at the land on the corner, and you kind of got that grass on the triangle there, which if you said, hey, we want to convert that to parking, I'm not sure that, the neighbors across the street would be troubled. You get the cars off of Crescent, that you lose the green space, but you get some place to park those cars. And, if you do it at the same time, you should kind of straighten out Crescent, make a T, and then think about what you want to do with the other side. I think it makes sense to do it all together.
Making that a T intersection would be a huge improvement because it's really difficult driving there. You can't really see that well if you're in the alley and you see if cars are coming down Crescent. Sometimes people are driving down Crescent and they don't see that there's a car in the alley. They're just looking for cars coming down not. So if you improve that intersection, I think that would be safer, especially if people are crossing from the pharmacy. Because sometimes the pharmacy parks their vans right there and you can't really tell if cars are coming from either direction. So improving that intersection would be really great.
That whole chunk is a no man's land for both pedestrians and cars. And so when the county's doing its work, since the town controls both Crescent and Clifton Park Road there, they could do something to, that makes sense. And so I think
Sorry, go ahead, Laura.
we're talking about doing that. So I think that the realignment of Crescent and Clifton Park, the town has been brought to the attention of the town multiple times, and the town definitely sees that problem. We even reached out to the county's engineers and said, what do you think we should do here? They're not really allowed to give us funding or do the engineering, but they've given us some ideas. So, I mean, I don't speak for the town or put funding on it, but I definitely think that the town is well aware and looking to realign that intersection. It could potentially add some more parking, and it's obviously much safer because right now it's a no man's land for driving, it's a no man's land for walking. There's a lot of issues there. So that's probably their number one priority. But if we can look at potentially, and maybe even the apartments will put the parking in the right of way themselves, but down the line, or figuring out, how that whole triangle works, it's just a thought. It's just gonna run it by you guys. It's come up a couple times.
Oh, yeah, if we can make sure that they're aware of it or they can be part of, fixing that issue, I think that's good. I mean, one of the, I had when I went to the public hearing, I don't know if it was a public hearing or public meeting for the Knott Street improvements, were people talking about the cut through a Crescent Road because people are trying to avoid the light at Balltown and Knott. So this intersection is, if we can do something to clean that up sooner rather than later, I think that will actually help address a lot of the comments that we heard, the Knott Street improvements, and then the whole kind of safety issues that people were bringing up about this whole section of the Knott Street area to cut through traffic. So yeah, as long as whatever they do doesn't impact our ability to work on that intersection, I can definitely see the need.
Makes sense.
As long as we're keeping that in mind. Because I walk through there all the time. That's why I'm so vocal about it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Every time I go to the co-op, I walk through there.
I like to walk there at lunch.
It's a problem. Cars fly through that intersection. They really do.
Okay, quickly, let's move on to Niskuna Schools. Anything you want to say about that, Laura? You noted in the minutes that the school district has made a decision to send 7th and 8th graders to Iroquois Middle School, and has made a decision to send 5th and 6th grade to either Hillside, what's now the Hillside Elementary, and then move K through 4th grade to Van Antwerp, or to keep 5th and 6th grade at the Van Antwerp school building and keep middle school K through 4 at Hillside Elementary. Tess Healy did send our spreadsheets to on hike and bike access to the schools to the school superintendent Cosmo, and he sent them out to the school board. And just informal discussions I've had, I mean, it seems like the school board members are very open to considering our input and either putting, they've asked the architects to look at it, saying this is something we want to see as part of bonding, is recommendations on how to make our schools more pedestrian and bike friendly. So I'm encouraged by that. I mean, I guess the recommendations on Van Antwerp being more breathable in terms of pedestrians, we have some thoughts. Hopefully they'll adopt some of those, and the same with Hillside Elementary. And so perhaps now we'll just have to start thinking about, what do we do to make Iroquois more hike and bike accessible.
So I am not 100%. I mean, admittedly, they have a lot that's going on with the, with the COVID and the schools being closed and everything. But my understanding of the next step with their bonding process is that the architects are now going to be putting together like more firm drawings that the numbers for the bonding are going to be based off of. And so what I would think our target next step would be is to make sure that there's some complete streets elements and some mitigations to the traffic that is the additional traffic that's being generated with this new configuration, to offset the additional traffic, like really push that these things are built into the bond. And so we would want to be reviewing the architectural drawings and just looking to see, like, did they put a multi-use connection in Iroquois, along the field so that it can connect into Railroad Park and over into Hempstead and all those places? Like, did they put, just on-site properties in their bonding that are going to allow for these multi-use connections and make people more comfortable walking and biking rather than additional cars and buses? So I jump in here if you guys know better than me, but I think our next step is just to stay listening and start actually really looking at the drawings and see if there's physical things that they're putting in there that are going to be included in the bond.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Do you know if they're going to have to come to the town, to the planning board, or how that will work? If at all has been about or discussed yet?
Yeah, there's been no mention of planning board or town board approval for anything related to the improvements at the schools. But I did, and Dart was there, bring, the changes of the configuration up in the Economic Development Committee meeting. And the town does understand that it is going to impact our traffic. And, our residents come to town board meetings fairly regularly and say, hey, like, you got to help us. So a lot of times we let the school be and do their own thing. But in this instance, I think a respectful relationship where we're just talking about, hey, this is what you need. This is what you've decided. Okay, great. This is how it's going to impact us. So how can we work together to mitigate these changes?
I agree. And I have one other footnote to add, something that Laura, mentioned, that say you take the sidewalk on Cornelius Avenue that serves Hillside Elementary, or a sidewalk that goes from Van Antwerp along Plum just to get around to the parking area at Hillside. And especially if it becomes a middle school, that gets to be important. And we also, as one of our priorities for the town, talked about hike and bike path on Birchwood on one side or the other. And I really think as Complete Streets Committee, we have the town board that's supportive of us, but does it get around to them actually spending money? And so my recommendation would be that, Complete Streets would like to recommend to the town board that they put $50,000 a year into the town budget for sidewalks, so that it's an incremental kind of a thing, that money is there. Interest rates are low. The town can do the bonding. They might even be able to do some of the work with their own crews, that you do the grading, and then you pay somebody to put the sidewalk in. I think that's a much more efficient path than trying to get neighbors to form a sidewalk district. And it's incremental, but if we start with schools, we start in priority areas where we think there needs to be a sidewalk, that if the town's got $50K in the budget, it's not just up to Complete Streets or somebody to get a grant to do these things. That maybe they start with Cornelius one year and Birchwood the next, but you start a process where they're doing something and they get recommendations from either the planning board or Complete Streets, and we start moving down that road. And we say to the board, if you're supportive of Complete Streets, you got to support us by putting some money in the budget and spending it to do some of these things, because everybody's in favor of a sidewalk on Cornelius, but who's going to pay for it? So that's my thought. So my recommendation to Complete Streets would recommend to the town board, please put $50,000 into the annual town budget for hike and bike path or sidewalk improvements in the town. So something for Complete Streets to think about, unless you just say, Bill, that's a great idea.
What is 50,000 buy for sidewalks? Like, is it?
Not very much.
Not a lot.
Well,
Laura,
I mean,
Bethlehem
I
has
don't know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
If the town did some of the grading and maybe put the stonework in between Ray Street and Hillside Elementary, and you pay the paving contractor the $50K to put the asphalt in between Ray and Hillside on Cornelius, or on Plum Street between Van Antwerp and the sidewalk at Hillside Elementary, then you get it done. And if the town does some of the grading work as part of winter work, they've got staff, they've got equipment, they could do that. Then whoever's doing the paving contracting, if they're doing the plaza or whatever, you just have them come over and pave that hike and bike path. Unless the Cornelius say, no, we don't want a hike and bike path, we want a sidewalk. But even that, the town does the grading work, puts the stone in, and you pay somebody just to put the concrete in. So I understand 50,000, it's a start, but if you can get the town board committed, they spend X, then if they're spending some, then they'll have to spend more to do it right. And so you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill, your thoughts are right on, Bill. Lauren, the town of Bethlehem has been doing exactly what you just discussed for a number of years, where the town staff goes in and does the grading and all that type of work that they're capable of. And then the money that's spent is really just to have the concrete people come in and put it in. I mean, Bethlehem, I think, even puts the forms down. So they just come in with a truck and pour the concrete and level it and walk away. If we can do something like that, the 50,000 will go a lot further. The other ability is that if we do know we have 50,000 a year in the budget, we can utilize that to try and go after grants as leverage to get money, as opposed to saying we want you to fund everything 100%. We'll have to see what we can do, additional match. If we know that's there, we can apply for things and say we do have money. We are putting something in to do this, and that will help a grant application to show that we've got some skin in the game. So we make that 1,000 turn into 100 or more, especially if we start spending some money over the next couple of years and people see that we're actually doing it. So I think it's a fantastic idea, both avenues, both seeing the town can do something to make it, spread that out as far as possible, and then also try and go after other grant money with it.
Our company.
And as a footnote, when you're preparing the budget, you're doing this now in April and May. It's easier to put money in now, and maybe it gets tossed out later on. But if you're building the budget, you have a conversation with the town supervisor and say, look, would you put 50K in for Complete Streets work? Here's some ideas of what we want to do. It's like your mother-in-law saying, do you want Thanksgiving at your house? If it's April, oh, sure, we'll do it. And so we just want to make that recommendation, get that money in the budget. Maybe it goes later, but I'd like to move that we recommend to the town board that they put $50,000 into the town budget for Complete Streets work.
Sounds good.
I'll second that if it's an official motion we need.
Yeah.
Happily second that idea.
Moved and second, Complete Streets Committee recommended the town board that they put $50,000 in town budget for Complete Streets work.
Pauline,
All in favor?
Oh.
That is the motion. Moved by the chairman, seconded by Member Levy. And now we're up for a vote. So we need to hear from Carla and Dart and David. And
yes.
Yeah, I can support
All in
that.
favor, aye.
Yes, yeah.
Aye.
Is that-
we
is that
have
the
a
right-
unanimous vote.
Is that the right amount, Bill? 50? Is that just like under the threshold, but so it goes under the radar, but enough? to
It's a
keep-
start.
it's a
Yeah.
start. Yeah.
How about the county roads? Like I've been taking a lot more walks with the last few weeks and everything, and Rosendale Road, it is so dangerous, but so many people use it. And how do we get that going with?
Well, I've met with Michelle Osterlich on that, and you know, I believe they're in favor of the improvements connected with the school, and so I really think we just need to talk to Tom Constantine and Sarah Mae Pratt and Rory Fluman, the county manager, and certainly Michelle, if we see him, to encourage doing the bike path on Rosendale Road, getting all the way down to Iroquois Middle School, especially now that they've indicated they're going to put all 7th and 8th graders at Iroquois Middle School. That I feel like it's incumbent on the county to do their part of that to get safe pedestrian and bike access. And if our county reps are saying they're behind walkability for the town, well, here's an opportunity for them to, you know, make a move that supports promoting walkability. And as Complete Streets, we've already given some suggestions to them on some things they can do to make that happen. So now they just need to follow through and do their part of it.
Bill, I might follow up with you after the meeting because we got an email from a woman named Christine Brooks at 2587 Rosendale. And she basically made a request for a sidewalk between the Elijah Kill Preserve and Rosendale Elementary School. She said, just to that point, she was saying that gets a lot of pedestrian traffic, and she was wondering what her next step is or what she could do to help.
Well, I like sidewalks, but one of the things we've had to think about is having both bikes and pedestrians on a sidewalk. And there is a stretch from Mayfair down, I think, to Rose Hill on sidewalk, and on Rosendale Road, that we would probably have to say is suitable for use by both bike and pedestrian. And I think if the county does the hike and bike path, then you can have both bikes and pedestrians on it. And really, if we go past Iroquois Middle School down towards the Grange building or even further towards the traffic circle, then we pick up those people that are pedestrians and bike folks that want to come the other direction to Rosendale Elementary or Iroquois. And we should just take that woman's recommendation and any neighbors she has, pass that to our county legislators to say, Rosendale Elementary is a busy road. We need the hike and bike path along it. We can connect neighborhoods north and south of Rosendale Road. And so, you know, they just need to take some of the, not highway money, some of the transportation money in the county budget and use some of it to do the hike and bike path along Rosendale Road.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I think that when they put those houses in on the school side of Rosendale, the town got it right away. You know, it was those 2 flag lots and the 2 other houses. I forget exactly where they are. I think they're a little south across between, like, just a little bit west of the Elijah Kill, but east of the school. And there might be some other right-of-ways in there that they could utilize as well, because I know that was sort of an objective a while ago.
You know, it's not transportation focused, but how cool would it be if the kids could walk over to Elisha Kill for a class?
It would be great. And they
That would
do.
be perfect.
No, I
You know?
it would be great. And I mean, just this is not Complete Streets related, but the town historian got a grant to put a historical sign in front of the Grange, and we're trying to elevate the Grange building, get it some attention, maybe get it some grants, and rehabilitate it so that it can be a place of learning. So yeah, you make all those connections. It's sort of like the more connections you make, I think the better. And actually, like we said before, the more money comes, like what Bill said, that once you start investing, it snowballs into something really great, usually.
Yeah. Hey, Laura, I was thinking about that, and this is a little bit off topic, but has the town considered setting up like a Friends of the Grange to raise money to fix it?
So very recently, a gentleman offered to do a Friends of the Grange, and I'm all in. Like, if we can do something like that, that would be really great. It really needs some attention.
Yeah.
I know they just recently did some trail work. I was back there maybe 2 weeks ago, and the trail's been realigned down the hillside there, so it's not so steep, which is pretty cool. And this was after we were on pause, and it was packed, so I haven't gone back.
Yeah. So they did that about a year ago, but the trail is maintained by the Nature Conservancy. The town actually outright owns the Grange, so we could maybe get the Friends, like a Friends of the Grange, and get some just low cost things to make it better and stronger building.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Leisha Kill is so beautiful.
In my understanding, that's where Route 7 was supposed to go back in the day.
And Paul Schaefer is one of the reasons that the Leisha Kill was preserved.
Okay, thank you for your input on schools, and don't forget to contact your county reps to support this. We talked about a Complete Streets event with the pandemic. Will we be able to do something, or would we move to August or September? And what would it be? And it's quite a bit of work for us. So I don't know. Is it something we can do this year or this summer or not?
So I spoke at the Economic Development Committee meeting, and they were most interested in, if we were to do an event, to do something in the Knott Street corridor so that people could see what some of the changes would look like. Actually, specifically the Crescent Clifton Park realignment. So they were interested in putting lines on the road showing how the realignment could work, and then maybe doing like a chicane or something on Clifton Park Drive, just showing how a treatment in Old Niskayuna might be able to slow cars down. There was a lot of initial support on that. You can't hold a drive-through Complete Streets event. Well, maybe you could. It would have to be for cars, though. I think that for now it's on hold, but I'm not saying that we couldn't do something like maybe in the fall.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be looking at kind of the traditional thing we've done the last couple of years, even this fall. I just don't know that we're going to be there. And I'm concerned people would even come out, in larger groups. I think people are going to be gun shy to come out in large groups for a while, even after things start to open up. But if we can do like why did I just blank on the term? A demonstration project, Laura, like you were saying, kind of over in that corner where you can put the striping down or, some cones or whatever, and people use it as they're going throughout their daily routines. That's something maybe we can consider, but I don't think, Bill, we're going to be looking at like a big 200+ person event this fall.
We can't do a bike ped festival, I don't think. And right. I was saying I don't think you could do a drive-through event like we're doing for Arbor Day, but actually maybe you could. Like maybe we focus on some kind of an intersection just for traffic safety. And I mean, traffic safety helps pedestrian and bicycle safety as well. So like we paint and then we do an email blast and say, hey, check out this configuration. Do you like it?
Absolutely.
Something like that.
People would come and bike it or walk it at their convenience,
at
right?
Their own convenience, yeah. And we just say, this is going to be out for 2 days. Email us your comment. This is your socially distant Complete Streets treatment of the month.
Yeah, that sounds like
that could definitely work.
Idea.
It would show that we're still alive and active and doing something too.
Yeah,
I would still recommend pushing it off, though. I wouldn't want to do it in the spring.
Yeah.
I agree. We could do it if the summer is weird and crazy. Summer isn't always a great time either, but maybe early fall we could put some ideas together and do some blasts and stuff. Okay. Let me pull that up again. Oops. I think Bill, do you just have a quick summary about discussions with the county on our map, and then
yes, I contacted Mark Storty, who is county planning, and he has agreed, he himself using his staff, to digitize what was the former Safe Routes to Schools map and is now our Complete Streets map. And what I had said to Laura was with the pandemic and people doing more walking and biking, it would be nice if the town board could, put out a copy of the map where all the connections are in place to say, hey, residents, if you'd like to get from A to B in the town on your bike or walking, here's a map that's been developed by Safe Routes and by Complete Streets to get around the town. And here it is. So, and what I asked Mark to do was kind of 2 layers. One is what exists now, and then there would be another overlay that would be with our proposals on it. So we'd have one that we would use to add proposals or to see connections that we have in mind. But, we might be able to share one with town residents of here is a map, with existing roads that you could use if you want to get around. And in any case, Mark's going to work on digitizing it, so we've got an electronic one and we can add stuff to it. And if we decide to ask the town board to do a blast, then maybe we could. But at least Mark's agreed to put it on GIS, so that's a step forward.
And I think
I'm sorry, go ahead, Laura.
I just really wanted to thank him for doing that. Like, we had a conversation and I was like, and he just managed to do that. So thank you, Bill.
Can I maybe build off of that? So one of the thoughts I had that I wanted to bring up with the committee was that there are a lot more people out walking and biking since this has gone on. And one of the things I've talked about with a couple other people, not this committee yet, was actually trying to make something positive out of what's been going on with the pandemic. And really, as it relates to one of my thoughts was, is it something the committee would be comfortable, the town would be comfortable with, to have, us go out individually and do some counts while this is going on during some of the peak time, how many more people are out there. And then also we put together just a really simple survey to ask people how the pandemic has changed their mobility, and make it a mobility thing. We know, and essentially say something to the effect of, and we'd have to figure out how to wordsmith it. We know a lot more people are walking and biking. How has it, changed your routine in terms of biking and walking? What do you like about what you're finding now that people are out and about more? And what are the issues that you're finding? Because I think we might actually get a lot of really good feedback, not only show, that there are a lot more people out there, but to find out what those issues are, because there are a lot of people biking and walking who haven't done it in years, and they're all over town. I came back to Balltown Road 3 days ago, and I must have passed 7 bicyclists going down soccer fields down toward the river. I almost never see that. Not that I'm there all the time. So there are a lot more people out in a lot more places, and maybe we could turn something, make something just something simple in terms of a survey, and then any kind of traffic counts we wanted to do, if we were willing to do it. Maybe we just sit in front of our houses and count people going by, or my thought was we just sit at intersections, like someone would sit up on Lexington and someone would sit down on Grand Boulevard up by Van Antwerp and some of those major places, and just count some, count pedestrian and bicyclists in the morning and the afternoon on the nicer days, and just see what our numbers look like.
Yeah, I like the idea of getting counts. As a matter of fact, I also like the idea, we might not be able to do interviews, but if we developed a little 2-page interview schedule, you had it on a clipboard, somebody comes walking along just saying, I'm with Complete Streets, we're doing some counts, but if you've got a minute to respond to these, I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but I run into friends that are walking, I wave at people that are walking, and they're out walking to get some fresh air, to bust out a cabin fever. And I mean, not everyone would have to do it. You just take the counts, but you could just ask them, look, if you love walking and you'd like to convey those positive messages to the town, Complete Streets, we're doing a little survey. And it would be some check boxes where you could do it in a minute or two. And, if they want to write some comments.
Online, Bill.
Pardon me?
I mean, I love human contact and I'm craving it, but I feel like it has to be online.
That's what I was going to suggest. Can we?
Okay. Well, I'm happy with that. So I guess my question is, should we develop a little survey where we have some standardized questions of things we want to learn about that Jim's talking about? I'd say categories that we would be able to use to push Complete Streets and encourage the county and the town to work with us on some of these things, because town residents are saying, hey, I've done more walking than usual and I love it, and here's some things I'd like to see.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of doing a count and going out to some of the kind of more popular locations, and do like the idea of doing the survey, and we can do them at the same time. One of the things that we can easily do is a survey marquee survey, and then out there doing counts, I can actually print a sign with a QR code on it, And we would just say, do you want to take the survey? And while people are walking by, when they're 13 plus feet away from you, they can just QR code with, and then take it, when they get home or whatever. And that way we don't have to be, get paper on a 13-foot pole.
Yeah.
We want to
It's
keep that.
easier too to have an online survey because then you have all your data in one place and you're not having people manually answer questions that then like 4 people have to tally somewhere. So
Yeah.
I
We
can
could just do a bunch of stick signs with a QR code on them while you're out there, and just say, yeah, we're just asking people to take a survey if you're interested, and they hit that with their phone and walk away. That's something I think we could do if people are interested. But we'll have to talk about planning how we want to. That's what the committee's interested in doing. I don't think it'd be that hard.
an email list that we could also send out to the community.
We could blast it on our, like, if we get a survey ready and we, just run it through the Economic Development Committee, we could blast it on our email blast and our Facebook page. We got like 600 responses or something like that for the farmers farmers market. So it definitely reaches people. It's unusual actually to have 600 responses in our town. So I know that
It was open this weekend if somebody wanted to stand there and alert people that there's a survey to fill out.
I guess first we'd have to put our survey together, right? Like,
as the Economic Development Committee, but it's something that we could do by next month, I think. So while people are still out and it's still fresh in their mind, we could run it past Economic Development in early May, get the survey going, and then do an email blast like mid-May before a pause is even lifted. Possible to do that.
I don't think it needs to be a long or complicated survey, but we do need to get approvals and make sure that it's it's put together properly. So it'll take a little time.
so Jim, would you be willing to put together a survey, or is that too big a job? And if members of the committee have things that they want to ask, can they send you a question or two that they think should be on the survey? Or
Yeah, yes to all. I can start drafting it, and if anyone has thoughts on questions or whatever, send them to me, and I'll pull something together over the next week or two.
Okay, and I know Paulina said she'd help too. I heard her.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I just use something like MailChimp, but if you're more tech savvy than I am, I definitely defer to you, Jim.
Oh. Okay, so I think that's a really great meeting. Does anybody have anything else they need to add?
I thought it was a great session. Thanks to everyone for coming. And it's our first virtual session, and I think well. So thank you for sending the instructions, Laura. And my wife told me to chill out. I haven't done a very good job, but I have tried. Anyway, it was a good session.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Stay healthy, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Oh, whoopsie.